Thank you so much. Thank you, Jonathan. Thanks, Amina. Oh my goodness, what a wonderful conference here. And I was just scrolling through and looking at the different titles, and I just wish to be in every place because I can see the richness in the program. And when I looked at the topic you've asked me to speak on, I just thought, what a way of just wrapping everything together. But one of the things I'm not going to do is to compete with the fact that you've got a lot of theoretical, a lot of research input, and I'm going to take mine through a storytelling approach, because I think that's how I can actually intersect the different aspects of my topic: multiple identities, upward mobility, and organizational leadership. So I will do the weaving through the story that I am going to share with you. So as I've already been introduced, I work at the University of Bradford as Pro-Vice-Chancellor for Equality, Diversity and Inclusion. And I have given my Twitter handle there because I always say that if we don't tell our stories, we will always get other people to tell our stories, and I don't think it's a good thing to do. So today is such an exciting conference, and I would suggest that we keep tweeting, Instagramming, every social media avenue that exists out there has to be used. So I have started by saying, here is my handle, please make good use of it. I'm going to talk through using storytelling, my own personal identities, look at some of the roles, qualities that I bring into combining or intersecting the different areas that I've been asked to speak through. I'll just talk very quickly about some of the practice or strategies that has led to my ability of combining all my social identities, and just very quickly talk through some of the challenges in that journey. So I'm starting with a few photographs here just to tell you who I am, because that's how I can position my own multiple identities. I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, I'm a child. Unfortunately, my mom sadly passed on during the pandemic. I am a senior leader in an organization, so that's a photo of me and my vice chancellor at a recent graduation. I'm a nurse, a very proud one at that, fellow of West African College of Nursing, fellow of Royal College of Nursing. As a member of the British Empire, I just wanted to show a photo there just to demonstrate that part of my identity that has been acquired. I am a high chief in different parts of Nigeria. I have 4 titles. I enjoy interacting with diaspora communities. So I just show you a picture there of us in a traditional or typical Nigerian party, just having fun. I'm also indicating some of the contacts that I continue to have in Africa and other parts of the world, because my work takes me round a lot, and I do quite a lot of international work. So these, I believe, these aspects of my identity, the way I interact within my group and outside my group, I think brings a lot of things that I want to talk through today. I always use this beautiful diagram to show dimensions of difference and how they all come together to shape any individual. So at the middle, the center of any individual, so if I'm talking about myself, I do have internal dimensions, and these dimensions are often legislated for in many parts of the world. So in the UK, if you look at internal dimensions around race, around gender, sex, sexual orientation, and so on, those are legislated for. And sometimes there are the things that you see immediately when you look at people. And often we don't think about the other cultural points of difference that make us significant, that make us tick, that you rarely see by just looking at us. And those are some of the secondary dimensions or external dimensions, some of the organizational dimensions that come together to help focus your multiple identities or challenge your multiple identities. So I always like to show this diagram when I'm talking about my identities. So having shown that diagram and having spoken very briefly about my own identities, the fact that I come to you a mother, a woman, a daughter, and a professional, and so on, I can then talk to the fact that I belong to multiple groups, that with multiple identities, individuals belong to this group. They are categorized based on their beliefs or activities, that there is a variation in the way these identities are achieved or inherited. The achieved identities for me would be my migration, for example. I came in from Nigeria to start my PhD at the University of Hull in 1992. So I achieved that migration from a particular country of mine, which I love, and I carry multiple visas just to show that I belong and I continue to belong there. But I achieved the migration status and I get referred to as migrant. I'm very proud to say that I have been traveling throughout this to get to a status where I don't think my high skills as a migrant is contested. But I believe very strongly that there are likely to be some conflicting experiences or perceptions around being in particular status as a migrant, being a woman, and how others perceive you and how you perceive yourself. So there is relative stability or malleability in the way we look at the status and the value that are assigned to us as individuals. I think our multiple identities can provide a pathway to gaining social support and positively influencing our well-being. However, as I've already alluded to, the multiple identities can also create distressing experiences. So there's quite a lot of research that has been done to show how the different parts of our identity can be a cost, or it could promote more positive benefits for us as individuals. Sometimes when I am exploring topics like these and looking at multiple identities, I come at it from my own contribution to my progression within organizations. But I don't for any reason undermine the importance of looking at structures and how structures can either elevate, promote barriers, or stop us from growing within those institutions. So it's about looking at the barriers, about my own self-identity, my multiple identities, and how I navigate all aspects of work that I do, acknowledging all the time that structural inequalities do not, for any reason, rely on my personal factors. Yes, I'll do my bit, but the structures and the systems and the policies will need to also give me the opportunity to grow. So I always turn things on itself. I'm not talking about self here because I think it's all in my power. I'm talking about self within the wider, the bigger picture, the structures that helps me to grow. So let me move on then. I use this 8-factor model, which has been developed over time. So a group of consultants and researchers started some work in 2006. One of them is Carol Campaign, a dear friend and somebody I know very well. And they looked at different women, different places, same gender and different areas, just to identify what the intersections between my race and my sex and gender identity can bring. So I use this diagram and I have myself in the center because it's always a continuing reminder that UD Archibong is this different woman who comes from different places, and that's the story of my migration. And that I have, although I might have same gender with my white female colleagues, but I do have different race, and that I need to keep, I think, celebrating the things that are good from this perspective, and I use that as a way to catapult my development. So starting with UD Archibong, who is bicultural, because the study that has been done shows that Black women leaders are very bicultural, and that they have this competence which allows them to function effectively in more than one culture. And they are able to switch from one role to another as the situation changes. So I always say to my colleagues, I come with bicultural competence, and I enrich your organization. When I'm in that leadership space, I'm able to flourish. And this is why I keep reminding people in my job, the need to allow lived experiences to flourish in our decision-making because of the bicultural nature of how the intersections between different parts of my identities gives me the advantage of being bicultural. There is a terminology that factor 8 has brought together in the transform and actional. So I personally see this as a real thing, that as a Black woman leader, I am both transformational and transactional. And I know a way of balancing the two to produce the positive ways that I interact, ways that I nuance the work that I do and support people in the work that I do. I come with cultural capital, and this helps me to generate a lot of benefits because I start by thinking about the legacies, the non-monetary capital that I bring into the workplace, that I bring into leadership. And I ensure that on a regular basis, I'm reminding myself and reminding people. I create opportunities for conversations so that I can tell people about this cultural capital and also tell people about the cultural capital that my students, my colleagues from different minoritized groups bring into the institution. I have multiple perspectives. I am able to look at issues from a wide variety of different perspectives. And I bring this into a lot of work that I do. I was just sharing something with a colleague. I was asked to investigate something so that I can keep the anonymity. And the way I was explaining how things came together in one place from the multiple angles. This colleague stopped me and said, you know, I never really thought about it that way. And then we got into the conversations about this is why we must diversify our disciplinary panels, our grievance panels, our decision-making panels, because there are different dispositions that help us to think in a very, very complex way around matters. It's so easy to jump into, yes, X equals Y, but when you come with the portfolio of experience that I have been exposed to from the journey that I have had throughout my life as a nurse, as a woman who has traveled from Nigeria, has been to different places, has seen different things, has had different experiences, then that multiple perspectives are very, very natural for me. And I see that in many minoritized people as well, coming at situations from multiple perspectives. I am present, I'm passionate, I'm powerful. This is my ability to communicate and convince people in a way that makes sense. And sometimes we think about power from the big P, but I think power exists in everything that we do because we need to communicate with conviction and authority. The next thing is I'm very, very values driven, and many women from different backgrounds or minoritized backgrounds have this. Some of them, and I do personally, think that I utilize a leadership approach that is rooted in clearly articulated principles and standards. Lately, I've been talking a lot about Ubuntu, and I'm using Ubuntu in my leadership development when I'm talking about cultural humility and saying to my leaders through the programs I'm running as part of our anti-racist university, talking to colleagues about values of Ubuntu and how that needs to be integrated in our mindset as leaders. So I come with those values-driven leadership skills and styles. My faith, belief is very important. And in the study with these many women from different background, different race, belief, spiritual belief being a deep conviction and trust in something supreme. So depending on your religious background or your belief that there is something more supreme and that driving the way you interact with people. It engenders a sense of humility because you know there's something supremely higher than you in the situation. So I think, and then the last bit is the self-mastery. Having a total belief in yourself, regardless of the circumstances. And I always smile about very practical things like how you master things without being taught. I use myself as example when I had a major surgery in 2010, and I was told that I couldn't do any other form of exercise. You can swim if you want. Having not swum ever in my life in that situation, I thought it was a self-mastery that led me to start learning how to swim. And within 3 weeks of self-taught swimming, I got into a competition and I won. But I came out of that convincing myself that this myth that black bones don't swim because they sink in water and that they're not able to float, I was able to squash that belief in a mighty way. And I just like how self-belief in this way, self-mastery, convincing and staying strong in that belief, obviously with flexibility in there, but having that total belief in yourself, regardless of circumstances, can be of massive use. But all these 8 factors contribute to the leadership around people, your influence behavior, your vision behavior, and values behavior. So the central thing for me in this is resilience. And I talk to people a lot about resilience. And I always remind people that for me, resilience is not that you're bouncing back from that loss which happens 1 in a million years. As a Black woman in leadership, I lose every day and I gain every day. Those little things that you see when you walk through the corridors of the university, when you sit in that boardroom and you hear things, you come out of it knowing that there are more to be fought on a regular basis to support the agenda. But it's about embodying and communicating inner calm, even in the face of those everyday losses that you see, experience, and face. Being able to lead with conviction and staying focused. There are different things that we need to think through. It's about being anxious, less anxious, and being able to communicate that sense of calm so that the individuals that look up to you as the leader understand what it feels like to be a human being in the face of multiple identities. Very quickly, there are some strategies or practices that would help somebody like me with multiple identities in leadership to survive. And I always call these the practices that make me me, but above all, the practices that helps an individual who has multiple identities, who is going upward in that leadership role, to stay in that role. And the big picture for me is vision, courage, being determined, but obviously sustaining your personal and professional self. So it's a continuing battle of saying, where am I going? How am I integrating with what I am doing? How am I staying focused to ensure that I can get in there, don't burn out, and don't be distracted? I think as a resilient leader, a Black woman in my place, a migrant high-skilled worker, needs to quickly blunt out the impact of setbacks. When you stay focused, the first thing you need to do is to keep asking yourself, when I am walking through the path that I'm walking through, what are the things that are getting in the way of success? How can I stay focused so that I come out successfully in this? And there's a huge role in staying connected with what you are doing and where you are in life. The next point for me is positioning. How do you gain support and support others? This takes a lot of humility. I've come through and I've seen colleagues, Black women, women from minoritized backgrounds, just feeling a bit anxious about gaining support. And I turned it on its head and I said, well, if you want to support others, at least you can learn the humility by gaining support, being able to say, I need somebody to talk to me about X, so that other people will have confidence in gaining support from you. So it's a very fine balance, but you have my permission to gain support and to be able to give other people support. This for me is about how you position yourself and cultivate networks before challenges hit. The next thing for me is to look at engaging in personal renewal. And this for me would involve things like always checking, what is your personal mission? What are your internal resources and how do you develop those internal resources? It involves personal audit on a regular basis, because you are the person who can truly and honestly tell yourself what needs to be done to be able to get to where you need to get to. The next thing is that you need to always renew your own beliefs or review your beliefs, and watch your mouth. I think it's important to always remember that a resilient leader, you use words carefully to create a positive emotional climate around you. But that is also based on those initial foundational things that I bring from my family, from the interactions that I have with in groups. So from that connection that you make through gaining support and working with people, you start looking at the ways you express what you're doing, positively looking at situations, even when negativity is staring at you. You need to expend your energies wisely and stay optimistic. And lastly, you need to ensure that you are building on strengths. What are those things that you are doing well? And how can you ensure that you don't beat yourself up with weaknesses, but you keep going positively, you see patterns and you use insights for change? There are challenges, I am not going to kid you, and these challenges, people often run away from it because we build some of these from the way people tell us, when you get into your leadership position as a migrant and you're going up there, you're going to forget others, and then certain things come in the way. You've experienced horizontal hostility. In these roles, I feel and I see isolation on a regular basis. When sometimes you sit back, the world seems so apart. You're expected to be like the other person in that room. A lot of backlash because sometimes other leaders do not necessarily understand what being non-traditional in a particular space can be and can look like. And I did talk about how you balance and position yourself, but above all, how do you care for others and not forget that you also need to care for yourself? And then there could be a place there for burnout if you're not careful. Well, I'm saying all this to say that these are challenges, but I love it when you can turn these into opportunities and you can also make positive sense out of it. I'm nearly there. The last few slides, I think there are 3 things that will help you to get into that space of inspiring others as a leader with your multiple identities. The first one for me is being authentic and remaining authentic, being supremely other focused. Let's beat this myth that when people get up there as women of color, for example, in leadership, that they forget their own. Don't forget that you are trying to balance the different identities, but you must always remember about the other people who are looking up to you, who are looking sideways, so that your peers, and how you are supremely other focused. And I love storytelling, and I think that is one behavior that deeply inspires people around me. I love telling stories like I have just done today. But the journey is never linear. It can be a roller coaster, and it is a roller coaster. But in the midst of this, if you manage your connections well, you have the fan base, and you don't take that for granted, as well as creating mentees, creating people around you that can always support you, then success is yours. And then finally, I just want to end on a few notes about leadership, that before you are a leader, success is all about you. But when you become a leader, success is all about growing others. And if you haven't taken anything away from me today, I want you to remember, as a woman, a migrant woman, in high-skilled roles, in leadership positions, you must always remember that your success will be defined by how many people you have grown. And I'm also here to say to all of us, please do not just think about leadership as being in a role, because you can create hope in people from whichever seat you sit on, and that we are all leaders. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.